Migrant workers and other non-permanent residents are demanding more rights and protections from the Canadian government. Protests were held across the country as cases climb among migrant farm workers. For more, we're joined by Koch. She is from Projects and Campaigns Coordinator at Migrant Workers Alliance for Change. Good to have you with us.
Hi, thanks.
Migrant workers and non-permanent residents are asking for full immigration status in Canada. What are the added protections that this would give them?
Permanent resident status provides workers and migrants and undocumented people with the ability to be able to protect themselves. So with the ability to be able to access rights, to assert their rights in the workplace, to access basic services like healthcare. And so what it does is it tilts the balance, especially in the case of migrant workers, tilts the balance of power and provides workers with the ability to be able to raise concerns about health and safety issues and to be able to assert their rights in the workplace.
You've spoken with migrant farm workers who say physical distancing is just not possible because of the overcrowding on farms, both in their accommodations and in their workplace. In Ontario, positive asymptomatic employees are still allowed to work. We don't see this in any other business in the province. Why is this an exception made on our farms, and what needs to be done to protect the workers?
Honestly, we think that this exception was made because the provincial government, the Ford government, was prioritizing the bottom line and productivity and profitability over migrant worker health and safety. It's frankly shocking that the government thinks that it's appropriate to make it so that workers can be sent to work while they are positive but without symptoms. In the context of migrant farm work, where employers have inordinate control over workers, that is basically an order that allows workers to be coerced to go to work, to ensure that more workers are going to get infected, that more workers are going to fall ill, and possibly that more workers will die. And we think that what it shows is that when we are talking about the food supply in Ontario, when we're talking about the food supply in Canada, what people are most concerned about, what governments have shown most concern about, is about protecting industry interests and not workers who are at the core of the food production. And what workers actually need is not to be forced to go to work while they're positive, but to be able to have the power to stand up for themselves, to be able to say that they don't want to work under unsafe conditions and not risk being deported because of it.
Karen, what does it say that the government, on one hand, is telling some sectors to physically distance, to even if you suspect that you have a case, to stay home, not to be out in the public and to infect them, yet in this industry are saying if you're asymptomatic, it's okay to work? What does that say to you?
I mean, I think it speaks to an inherent racism in the immigration system that devalues the health and the safety and the livelihoods and, frankly, the lives of migrant workers. That's deeply embedded in the system. It's deeply embedded in the agricultural industry and the nature of the temporary foreign worker programs that for years have denied workers the ability to be able to protect themselves in the interests of defending productivity and profits. And I think that we've seen 3 deaths already amongst migrant workers in this province, and allowing employers to coerce workers to go back to work while positive really says that the government does not care for migrant worker lives or their livelihoods. It's shocking, and I think that it will lead to more illness and more death.
Yeah, COVID-19 cases among migrant farm workers are on the rise. Last week, a single farm in Windsor, Essex, that was linked to 175 new cases. So if outbreaks continue to happen on our farms, could this eventually lead to food shortages across the country? The solution by the provincial government seems very short-sighted. If you're going to have an outbreak, you're going to have workers off, which means you're going to have a food shortage.
Yeah, exactly. And the decision to allow positive asymptomatic workers to go to work, I think, was kowtowing to employer interests who were concerned that if they took their workers to get tested and their workers ended up being positive, then they would lose access to workers at crucial parts of the season. And it doesn't actually get at the fundamental reasons why these outbreaks are happening in the first place. Unsafe, overcrowded living conditions, poor working conditions, low standards, low wages, and the inability to be able to, for workers to be able to raise concerns about health and safety, the lack of PPE, the lack of physical distancing, and to be able to refuse unsafe work, because if they do, they can be terminated and they can be deported. So it's skirting what the fundamental issue is and choosing to put migrant workers at risk at greater risk, at threat to their lives, instead of actually getting at the root of the problem, which is dealing with the inadequate living and working conditions and the inability of workers to be able to protect themselves from unsafe work. That is what has produced the outbreaks that we've seen now. It's led to this situation. And without addressing that problem, we are only going to see more outbreaks. And if we're concerned about the food supply, it's going to have to be worrying about the people who are fundamental to producing the food.
Karen, I want to thank you for coming on today, and we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Thanks for watching. If you like this, be sure to subscribe here.
And you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.